The World Cup starts tomorrow, and the Trump administration is already using it as an excuse to discriminate against whoever they want. Specifically, a Somalian referee who won Referee of the Year last year. Also, the White House is already pre-blaming Europe if an Ebola outbreak results from the World Cup. You can't just pre-blame an entire continent. The Iran war is on today, with Iran striking us and us striking them. We also have Anthropic publicly calling for a pause on AI, but also they just released their new model, Mythos, to the public, despite warning just a few months ago that Mythos was so powerful it could be a huge cybersecurity risk. We also got testimony yesterday from Jeffrey Epstein's longtime personal assistant. Graham Platner wins the Democratic nomination for Senate in Maine, and NASA announced the crew for the Artemis III moon mission, though the mission's timeline is unfortunately dependent on SpaceX and Blue Origin. I'm Sammy Sage, and this is the Morning Announcements with your daily news in 10 minutes. Let's get into it. The U.S. and Iran went tit for tat yesterday, after Iran shot down a U.S. Army helicopter, and the U.S. responded by launching strikes on Iranian air defense and radar systems. The Army helicopter that was shot down was rescued by a drone boat, and both crew members are in stable condition. Less stable is the stock market, as stock futures fell after the U.S. launched its strikes, indicating that people are worried that the war could start up again in a big way. The World Cup kicks off tomorrow. No pun intended. I can't be the first person who's ever said that. And the Trump administration is making it so fun for everybody already. One of the 52 referees selected to referee the tournament was denied entry to the United States because of, quote, vetting concerns, and will no longer referee the games because he can't get into the country. Omar Artan has already been extensively vetted through the visa process, had a valid visa, and is by all accounts what Logan Roy would consider a serious person. He was even named the best male referee in 2025 by Africa's Soccer League. I feel like I should call it football. Not the issue here. There's also the vice captain of the Iraqi team, Ayman Hussein, who was detained at Chicago's O'Hare Airport for almost 7 hours before he was allowed to enter the country. The Iraqi team photographer, however, was denied entry. You just know they got that other guy because his name was Hussein. And, Barack Hussein Obama. The Trump administration is already pre-blaming Europe in case any Ebola outbreaks result from the World Cup. Of course, why wouldn't they blame the quack secretary, who I feel certain even Donald Trump believes is nuts, but who he keeps around because of his last name? Anyway, the State Department wants the World Health Organization to change its policies to make Europe strengthen travel restrictions from Central Africa, where the outbreak began, while claiming that the WHO failed to immediately report the outbreak and misled the world by not imposing enough travel bans and border closures. For context, there have been no confirmed Ebola cases in Europe, where EU officials say they're focused on screening, testing, and contact tracing, rather than trying to seal borders arbitrarily. The use of those terms is triggering. I need to move on now. But not before I mention that one of the reasons that the Ebola outbreak was identified so late was actually because USAID funding was cut. And because the administration's immigration and border strategies have been so effective, the House of Representatives voted yesterday to pass a bill to give them another $70 billion for immigration enforcement, which is enough to fund everything they want to do for the rest of Trump's second term. Of that $70 billion, $38 billion will go to ICE, $26 billion will go to Border Patrol, and an extra $5 billion to cover unforeseen costs. Like what if they shoot an American citizen in cold blood and they have to lawyer up? Just kidding, they have the DOJ for that. And it's definitely not going to feeding people in the detention centers, so. New uniforms? Just discretionary spending for Stephen Miller? Body cams. Jeffrey Epstein's former assistant, Lesley Groff, testified before the House Oversight Committee yesterday. It was a closed-door transcribed interview where Groff was not under oath, and the reaction from the committee members was that Groff's testimony was highly inconsistent. She claimed that she, quote, never saw anything improper and denied being close with Epstein, despite working for him for almost 2 decades, before and after his conviction, and being the person who kept his entire schedule and who multiple Epstein survivors say was the one to arrange their so-called massages. And yes, Donald Trump has never made a doodle. You can't spell anxiety without AI, and even Anthropic is getting the yips about it. Anthropic's co-founder issued a statement, along with the head of its research institute, asking the world's leading AI labs to come together and kumbaya, and consider a potential pause on AI development. They wrote in a blog post, what is with these companies communicating like society-bending information and calling it a blog post? Quote, we believe it would be good for the world to have the option to slow or temporarily pause frontier AI development to enable societal structures and alignment research to keep up with the advance of the technology. Translation, we're scared shitless about what could happen. They compared their proposed solution to develop a partnership between the leading AI labs to how countries monitor the proliferation of nuclear weapons, which is a worrying comparison. The response from those potential partners was generally a soft, no fucking way, with some even characterizing it as a self-serving effort for Anthropic to get ahead, as these companies are all preparing to go public soon. I mean, probably. I'm guessing that's why an Anthropic spokesperson wanted to be clear on the record that they weren't actually calling for a pause, just the option for them to all discuss having a pause. Of course. I'm going to venture a guess that ambivalence could be related to Anthropic releasing its next generation LLM to the general public yesterday, known as Mythos or Claude Fable 5, which Anthropic itself had previously deemed too dangerous for public release, like barely 6 months ago. What? They have an IPO to catch. On the elections beat, Graham Platner secured the nomination for Democratic Senate candidate in Maine, so he can officially go up against the concerned Susan Collins in November. In South Carolina, Democratic primary winner Dr. Annie Andrews will go up against Senator Lindsey Graham for his seat. The race for California governor is coming to a close, with Tom Steyer officially conceding yesterday and endorsing Democratic candidate Javier Becerra, who will run against Republican Steve Hilton in November's general election. I wouldn't have even felt a need to bring this up if not for the fact that Steyer was a bit stubborn about the results, but not quite as bad as the President of the United States, of course, who continued to push conspiracies about California's elections. And if you're questioning whether this is having any effect, it very well may be. Even California Congressman Democrat Ro Khanna tweeted that his close friend was canceling their voter registration because they were convinced that Spencer Pratt was robbed of the election. And he called for California to figure out a way to count their votes faster, as they are historically very slow. Come on, you guys are on the cutting edge. Go faster. And just one more stray election fact this morning. Texas Attorney General and Republican Senate candidate Ken Paxton, who's running against Democrat James Tallarico, has been spurned by his own former impeachment attorney, who has now endorsed Tallarico in that race. Paxton's former attorney Dan Cogdell represented him in his 2023 impeachment trial for accusations of corruption and securities fraud, which he was ultimately acquitted for. Cogdell said that he, quote, worked his ass off for Paxton for 9 years, and he didn't even cite his own dislike for Paxton, simply the fact that he's too focused on appeasing Donald Trump to be a good senator for Texas. Of course, Ken Paxton's campaign wrote the attorney off as a Democrat, blah, blah, blah. However, voters in Texas don't register with the political party, and Cogdell says that he considers himself a moderate and that he's donated more to Republican candidates over the years than Democrats. To me, that sounds like a Republican, if we're going by dating app rules. And finally, NASA announced its crew for the Artemis III mission, which is currently scheduled for late 2027 and will be the next step in NASA's mission to land astronauts on the moon again, hopefully in 2028. The crew will be NASA astronauts Randy Bresnik, Frank Rubio, Andre Douglas, and the European Space Agency's Luca Parmitano. Unlike Artemis II, that was such a great week, their mission won't involve the moon. They're going to be orbiting the Earth while they practice docking their capsule with 2 lunar landers, though NASA is currently waiting for those lunar landers to be delivered by SpaceX and Blue Origin, which have contracts to build them. And unfortunately, Blue Origin recently had a setback on their project after one of their rockets exploded during a test firing, though they say it'll be ready in time. Far be it for me to tell Jeff Bezos how to figure out logistics, but maybe it's time to prioritize the NASA mission rather than sending Katy Perry and a daisy to space. Until tomorrow, I'm Sammy Sage, and now you know what the fuck is going on. And make sure to follow Betches News on YouTube.